This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody? Guys and girls, welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown Review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I am one of the hosts of this show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on X at Michael5Ritter, on Instagram at MichaelRitter5, and also one of the hosts of the Football Function Podcast, available on all of your podcasting platforms, including on Patreon if you prefer an ad-free experience. And speaking of football, as you are well aware, the NFL playoffs are officially underway. We've already had a couple games go on. By the time you hear this, we will probably be well into Sunday football. So I do want to thank you for tuning in. And also I hope that you will tune in over to the Football Function Podcast and, show some love over there. It's a growing show. It's been around for a few years now, but we are still continuing to grow. And any type of support, any type of contributions, just in terms of like downloads. I consider a listen, a download, whatever, a like. I consider that a contribution to you helping make the show what it is, which is, a growing podcast. And I'm definitely proud of where we are up to this point. Now, I am here to talk about an episode of SmackDown that aired on January 12th, 2024. From Lincoln, Nebraska. Shout out to DJ Kuzmo for the location breakdown per usual. But before we get into this episode of SmackDown, I do kind of just want to catch you guys up and let you know why this episode of SmackDown is as late as it is. Number one, I was in Dallas for Thursday and Friday, and I traveled back home on Saturday because I was in attendance for the Pod Meets World Live. I've kind of talked about this over, the last few weeks, maybe the last month or so, in the build-up to this event. Long story short, it is a rewatch podcast. The cast of Boy Meets World is going through episode by episode, season by season, in chronological order, and providing a review show for every single episode. And I am, I'm a loyal listener. I've been listening to the show every single episode, every single week. I believe it drops one every Thursday, I think, is the routine. Maybe a couple a week, depending on if they get like some type of bonus episode with an interview or something like that. Because that's another thing, is they bring on former cast members, former crew members, people who are just, connected to 90s. Like just this last week, they had Patrick Renna. If you're a 90s baby, or if you are, familiar with the 90s decade, you're very familiar with who Patrick Renna is. He was the Ham on, obviously, The Sandlot, one of the big popular sports movies. He was also in Son-in-Law. He has a very recognizable face. He's on TikTok now doing all kinds of dances. They had him on there just kind of talk about his few appearances that he had on Boy Meets World, and they just continue to do that with so many other guest stars. So it's a very entertaining podcast. I heard they were coming to Dallas, which is about 5.5 hours from where I live. So anytime something goes to Dallas, it's pretty reasonable that, I can make an appearance there. And something like this, without a doubt, the venue was phenomenal. It was just a great experience for, a theater type show, because that's exactly what it was. We were at the Majestic Theater in downtown Dallas, Texas. It was a beautiful venue. I'm not sure if any of you guys have been there before, but yeah, you walk right in. It was such a smooth process. I'm not sure if you guys go to like sporting events, but sometimes you got to wait. You got to walk a very long way from wherever it is that you parked. You have to go into a line. It takes you 30 minutes to get to your seat. That was not the case for this episode, or for this show that I went to, I should say. We went, right from our parking lot, probably about a 5-minute walk right into the front door, showed our tickets. Yep, go in that door right there. We were able to get some merch, which, like wrestling shows, you got to be careful going to a merch stand. If you don't go at the right time, that line is going to be insane. And by the time you get up to the front, they're probably out of sizes left and right. You're just pretty much, scraping the bottom of the barrel there from my experience. So you have to kind of take a strategic approach to when you go to the merch stand. That's just with anything, just, food for thought. But, we get in there, we get our merch, we get to our seats, probably about a 35-40 minute wait. And one of the themes of these, these live shows that they do is people, they show up in costumes just from various episodes, various scenes, famous moments in the show. We have just reenactments. They bring like the best 10 costumes on the stage, and we have a vote off where you just pretty much, you make some noise, say, all right, who wants this person to win? Put their hand over their head. The crowd cheers. You guys know how that goes. They had a Q&A where so many different people were getting up there asking very good questions. They showed blooper reels that were never before seen. Obviously, we heard from the one and only Mr. Feeney, and if you're a Boy Meets World fan, that means everything. And obviously, with the age of Mr. Feeney, getting a chance to see him on the screen was a very touching moment. But that's why it's late in terms of the SmackDown review. That's why the show is coming out even later than what it normally is. But do not worry, like usual. Anytime this show comes out after Friday, you will get a Stack 'em Up Saturday, and it is still Saturday when I'm recording this, so we are going to do that. We're going to do the current championship belt designs at the very end of the episode, so you can kind of just stay tuned for that, because I am looking forward to getting into, which belts I personally think are the best that the company has right now. There's a lot of good ones. They're finally starting to get out of the cookie cutter mode, which is pretty much what they were in. Every belt looked the same, other than a different type of color. It's extremely company branded, which that's just how it is these days. I mean, go look at the Vince Lombardi trophy. It has an NFL logo right there in the middle. Same thing with the Larry O.B., the trophy for the NBA. It's going to have the logo of the respective league. Look at the UFC championship belts. They have the UFC logo right there. And I promise you, if you are a fan of UFC, you know that the belts didn't always look like that. It almost seemed like UFC took a little bit of a page out of WWE's playbook when it comes to their belt designs and having them all somewhat be like a unanimous look. Like they all look pretty much, I guess universal look is what I'm trying to say there. But I think WWE has kind of done a decent job making their belts look a little bit unique. And obviously we're going to get into all that towards the end of the episode. But first things first, let's go ahead and talk about this episode of SmackDown. Like we said, Lincoln, Nebraska is where it took place. January 12th, 2024 is when it took place. And I feel like this episode of SmackDown was pretty, I guess it was storytelling centric, if that makes sense. Like it was really focused on things outside of the main event picture, getting some build up. Like just for example, we saw, the whole faction duel going on between Karrion Kross and Bobby Lashley and their respective factions. We saw the storyline with Damage Control take another step forward. It does seem like this episode of SmackDown didn't need the absolute, main eventers featured throughout the show for it to be a good episode. Paul Heyman was featured throughout the show, which was a nice little story in of itself. Just the way that they were building it up, making the Bloodline seem desperate for help. Paul Heyman going to several different people, asking them to join Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa in their main event match, trying to prevent it from becoming a handicap match. Due to Roman Reigns not being there, Nick Aldis doing his thing per usual, kind of just being a thorn in the side of the Bloodline. And that's kind of how the episode of SmackDown starts off. We can go ahead and just get right into it. We're supposed to get a one-on-one match between Grayson Waller and Cameron Grimes. We get Grayson Waller coming out to the ring. As Cameron Grimes is coming out, he gets attacked from behind by Solo and Jimmy. Pretty much just say, no, SmackDown is starting on our terms, which is exactly what they do. They go to the ring, and Paul Heyman picks up a microphone, pretty much just blaming Nick Aldis. It's like, the way I look at it, the way that Paul Heyman is blaming Nick Aldis for the Bloodline, and specifically Roman Reigns being in the situation that he's in as we sit here going into the Royal Rumble, him at a completely disadvantageous spot, having to defend his championship against not one, not two, but three people in the same match. Clearly, the odds are stacked against Roman Reigns, and it's going to make for interesting television, and obviously this match itself is going to be one worth watching. But it somewhat reminds me a little bit of, like, if you're a person of power or a person of authority at your place of work, and someone shows up late time and time again, and you, it being your job, have to write them up. So you have to somewhat discipline them, if that's, for lack of a better word. And they blame it on you. Like, oh, really, man? You really wrote me up? You're going to get me in trouble, dude. Like, how could you do this to me? Now, they're the one that's late, but they're blaming you for you doing your job and, you laying down the hammer, so to speak. So I feel like Nick Aldis, he does a really good job kind of sticking it to the Bloodline, and specifically Paul Heyman, whenever they kind of get on the microphone, he snatches the mic away from Paul Heyman. He reminds him, makes it very clear, like, if you think that this is a conversation between two equals, you're very much mistaken. Like, know your role is pretty much what he was saying there. I love seeing that from Nick. Some people aren't a fan of the general manager having a personality, and especially if they're leaning towards one specific side, whether it's heel or babyface. I feel like the side that Nick Aldis leans, is the side of logic, like the side that it makes sense. It's almost like he's watching it as a fan, where he comes out to the ring, he sees complete BS happen, and he steps in. Seeing Nick Aldis and Paul Heyman go face-to-face also provided a little bit of nostalgia, almost like a then versus now. It's like someone who, like, is obviously Paul Heyman used to be the general manager of SmackDown way back in the Ruthless Aggression era. It's almost like seeing the head coach of your favorite football team from 2003 coming face-to-face with the head coach of your favorite football team in 2023. You know, it's almost like, what the hell's going on? You know, 20 years later, I'm in the same position you were in, and it just seemed a little bit weird. I guess, you know, no one else might have noticed that whenever they were kind of standing face-to-face having that little bit of a conversation. It immediately came in my eyes. I was like, man, almost like full circle here. Paul Heyman looking at someone who was in the position that he was once in, although doing it from a completely different point of view. Albeit Paul Heyman was a heel general manager, but still, it was something that jumped out to me. But that's pretty much how it ends. He just says, look, that fatal 4-way match that you're trying to, already start the train up, you're trying to get the ball rolling to assume that this isn't cemented already. No, this is already a done deal. That fatal 4-way match is in fact happening, and as a matter of fact, the contract signing is happening next week on SmackDown. And if I'm not mistaken, next week's episode of SmackDown is from Atlanta, Georgia, and you guys already know that is home for the host here of the SmackDown review, Psycho Myko. So if they are going to Atlanta and I didn't mishear them, then clearly next week's episode of SmackDown is going to be a very juicy one. We're getting very close to the Royal Rumble, so that's going to make the WWE TV that much more juicy week in, week out. So clearly we have to prepare ourselves for what's in store here. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the things that happened on SmackDown before we get to the main event, which I kind of already set that up and put the framework as to what's going on here. Nick Aldis pretty much, he continues to stick it to the bloodline by telling them, hey, you have a 3-on-3 match tonight. Or 6-man tag, I guess is a better way to say it. You got Orton, LA Knight, and AJ Styles going up against Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and Jimmy Uso. So, typically, I'm not really a fan of these. They've worked in the past, but I feel like whenever you're doing it every single week, it does seem a little bit redundant, making the challengers team up together to see if they can coexist and beat this team. I just feel like that's one of the most overused terms. It's one of the most overused formulas, and I mean, like I said, I can appreciate it whenever it's done once per program. We don't need to see it every single week, and it's not even Survivor Series season, so having people team up that don't usually team up isn't even, it's like playing Christmas music in July. You got to at least make the stipulations match up with the year. Come on, WWE, what are we doing here? But Paul Heyman doesn't like that news. He pretty much says, just as well as I do that Roman Reigns is not here in this. He pretty much tried to run down Lincoln, Nebraska. Like, come on, you think Roman Reigns is going to make an appearance here? Like, what are we talking about here? But so he says, okay, that's fine. You have the end of the night to find a partner. Otherwise, this match is going to be a 3-on-2 handicap match. So that leads to Paul Heyman, going up to multiple people, trying to get them to join the team. He goes up to Carlito, offers him an apple just to try to get him to do it. He goes up to Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley has a nice little tease saying, look, the only time I'm going to be in the ring with the Bloodline is if I am going face-to-face with Roman Reigns for that Universal Championship. So that was a nice little touch there. The crowd sure as hell popped for that as well. And Pretty Deadly come up to Paul Heyman. They pretty much offer their assistance, but he says, look, I only need one person, not two. And in that case, they're pretty much out. They're like, no thanks. We're going to go do something else with our time, which I feel like that's probably a good idea for them. They might have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, but obviously we'll get to that main event. Once we get there, first things first, let's go ahead and get through some other things that happened on SmackDown. Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo defeat LWO, Joaquin Wilde, and Cruz del Toro via pinfall with a rope-assisted roll-up. Carlito and Santos Escobar brawled during the match. Escobar was a guest on commentary. Carlito comes out of nowhere, which he actually came from the quote-unquote, let me quote Corey Graves, the WWE Universe to attack Santos. And that right there reminded me of how much I appreciated whenever they were called fans. And I'm not even crapping on, they shouldn't be called WWE Universe, but it's something so small as hearing JR say, oh, they're taking this battle out to the fans. They're taking it out to the crowd. Now, 100%, this thing is spilling out to the WWE universe. You know, like, I just feel like the terminology, it's a slight twist, but it's enough to make me say, like, come on, man. Like, I don't think that the crowd in attendance should be considered the WWE universe. Now, the IWC, the internet wrestling community, all the fans, millions watching at home, they should be the WWE universe, as a sense of, hey, we're not here, but you could feel us. You know, it's like the stars that are in the universe. Sometimes you don't see them during daytime, but they're still there, you know? So it's almost like that same comparison when you're talking about WWE fans. The people that are there in attendance should be part of the show. They should be part of the WWE. You know, they're not in the universe. I guess it's a really small thing. I'm not going to go on a rant about it. But it's something that kind of just, it almost hit my ears like nails on a chalkboard. Like, come on, just call them fans. Say you're going out to the crowd. Carlito comes from the crowd and he attacks it. It just seems like a small change that could go a long way. But after this match is whenever Carlito is walking backstage and Paul Heyman comes up, offers him the apple, which he does take the apple, but, you know, he doesn't take a bite and spit it up, which is, you know, typically what he would do there in that situation. Continuing on here, Logan Paul threatened to sue Kevin Owens if he used his cast in their United States Championship match going to be taking place at the Royal Rumble. And then Kevin Owens invited Logan Paul next week to the Kevin Owens show to be a guest on the Kevin Owens show. And this is going to be a very interesting segment. Probably going to be one of the better segments of SmackDown next week. When you look at what these two are going to say to each other, like verbally, this is one of the better programs going on right now, because Logan Paul, you just never know what you're going to get with him. It's extremely authentic, his character, his personality. It just seems like that's really who he is. And Kevin Owens is one of the most blurred line guys in WWE. He's the one guy that does kind of break the fourth wall in a sense. When you talk about him, like constantly like pointing out, like, hey, we just said someone's name. Why aren't they coming out yet? Why isn't their music hit? You guys know how it works around here, or am I the only person that knows how it works around here? We've seen Kevin Owens do that multiple times, so I just feel like these two are a really good mixture if you're looking for an elite promo battle. Like, if you're looking for a war of words, this is definitely, you know, right up your alley, and I think we're going to get some pretty good stuff on Friday Night SmackDown. Tyler Bate, he tried to convince Butch. This was a video package they played, or not really, it was just a pre-taped segment where Tyler Bate was trying to convince Butch to team together moving forward, but Butch obviously refused. And they also teased a little bit about Butch going back to his original ring name, Pete Dunne, which I would not be opposed to that. I've, been a fan of Pete Dunne really whenever he debuted in NXT. When he was in NXT UK, I just felt like his character was really unique. It did feel real. And it's not like Butch doesn't feel real. It just seems like he's watered down or maybe neutered in a sense where I'm trying to bring up another analogy here. Like, it's almost like you have a really good friend, and he gets in a relationship, and you know the type of friend that you have. You know him. You've gotten to be around this guy so many different times, so you know his tendencies and what he is and isn't okay with. And then you see him doing things with, like, a new girlfriend that he wouldn't normally do. Like, say the guy doesn't ever wear sweaters, and all of a sudden he's with this girl, and now he's wearing, like, a really nice sweater, dressing nice, trying to, I guess, please her and maybe her group of friends. And I'm not saying that's exactly what Butch is doing. I'm just saying that it almost seems like you could look at him and be like, dude, like, this isn't you. What are you doing? Go be the crazy dude who's biting championship belts and, just absolutely twisting people's fingers and stomping on them and making them shatter. That's the Pete Dunne that I remember. And it's not, like I said, it's not like Butch is something that I'm not okay with. I just think that it was a little bit of a shift. And it wasn't even a lateral movement. I think that this was for sure like a backwards move. And if we could get him back to his original style, then I think that would be going in the right direction. Continuing on here, Bianca Belair defeats Bayley via pinfall after hitting a KOD as Damage Control watched on. Bayley was upset backstage with the lack of support, but Dakota Kai said that the referee had his eyes on him, and this is just like, come on, what are we doing here? All 4 members of Damage Control were out there watching. They were all in the corner of Bayley trying to support her, and it wasn't enough. Like, they even used the excuse, like, the ref was watching us. Come on, like, when has that ever mattered? The referee's watching, who cares? They do blatantly obvious stuff. You get ejected from ringside before you allow your teammate to lose. Like, no, I'm going to get involved completely and try to win this match. You're going to throw me out before you lose this match. And I just feel like Damage Control is absolutely just showing those signs, And when you look at Bayley, they even use that excuse. Like, no, in order for your plan to come through, you need to win the Royal Rumble on your own. And because your plan is for all of Damage Control to have the gold all being in Damage Control. So in order for that to happen, you need to be on your own. And they even mentioned, like, hey, we thought you could handle Bianca on your own. A little bit of a backhanded jab there as well. So, yeah, like, this is kind of hitting another gear here. And I wouldn't be shocked as much as I do want Bayley to eventually win the Royal Rumble and that babyface turn, she wins the Royal Rumble. She comes out. And they all want her to go get the belt, right? They want her to get all the belts inside of Damage Control. So that means challenging Rhea Ripley, getting her championship, and hopefully bringing it back. Imagine the pop if she has a little Dave Bautista-style thumbs down, like, no, Io, I'm going after your championship. And I'll see you at WrestleMania. You guys don't think I know what you've been doing for the past few months? Like, I could almost write the promo myself. But they could go that direction. They might not go that direction. Obviously, Bayley could just get eliminated. They could just have, Damage Control kind of screw her over unintentionally, in air quotes. But you can look at the Royal Rumble as like a 3-month checkup. Like if you have a torn ACL or something and you have to go home and the doctor says, no, you're on bed rest, you're very limited, you're on crutches, but come back in 3 months and we'll kind of see where you are. And then we'll have a really good idea for how this is healing. That's kind of what the Royal Rumble is for this specific program and this storyline and this slow burn. It's like, yeah, just kind of get through it, come to our checkup at the Royal Rumble, and that's going to tell us a lot. That's going to be a big moment. I really feel like in this whole Damage Control demise, the Royal Rumble, we're going to look back on, just like last year with Sami Zayn when he hit Roman Reigns with that steel chair. The Royal Rumble is the biggest pivot foot in the entire WWE calendar year. And I am without a doubt looking forward to seeing how this one specifically plays out. We've been watching it for a few months now, and it just keeps on getting better and better. But continuing on here, Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, they come out and they call out Karrion Kross, Scarlett, the Authors of Pain, Paul Ellering, pretty much everybody. We didn't know. We thought their group could have possibly been the Final Prayer because that's what his shirt was labeled as. It's actually labeled the Final Testament. That's what their group is named. We saw that in a little sinister promo that they cut. So that's the group, the Final Testament. So get used to it. We'll see where they go from here. Definitely has potential, just being completely honest. I really think that this group, the way it's set up, like I said, they got the coach, they got the eye candy, they got the heavyweight contender, or what he should be, a heavyweight contender, a top guy, and they got the tag team. Like, that's really all you need. I just go back to even, what was and this is one of the rare times I'm not familiar with the Ruthless Aggression callback. The cabinet, right? JBL had a specific cabinet where it was the Basham brothers, Orlando Jordan. He even had was it Candice Michelle? Ah, man, dang it. SmackDown. I'm not as familiar with Ruthless Aggression SmackDown as I am Monday Night Raw. Evolution was going on this exact same time period, so clearly there was a thing for factions, just like there's kind of a thing for factions now. Obviously, Triple H having his fingerprints all over this. But yeah, this just seems like a really good group, just like some of the groups of the past. I feel like it's constructed properly. It's not, too top heavy. There's a lot of balance throughout it, and that's really important. It really gets overlooked, I feel like. But up next here, we get Carmelo Hayes versus Austin Theory. This match does not end, or at least it doesn't have an actual finish. There was a botch that took place. Austin Theory attempted a seated springboard Spanish fly, and it resulted in his head being smashed to the mat, with Carmelo Hayes coming down on top of it. This was a rough fall. They called it immediately. This was a kind of just fly by the seat of your pants decision with WWE. They don't expect something like that to happen, obviously. But when you have two dudes like Theory and Carmelo Hayes that are flying around, I mean, you could tell they didn't have a lot of experience, honestly, because I watched this episode of SmackDown after SmackDown already aired. So I already knew that this injury happened, and I was looking for it, and I was kind of paying attention, and the chemistry was noticeably off. There was a spot in the match where Carmelo Hayes was trying to drop Austin Theory like off the outside of the apron, and Theory slipped, and you could tell that it went a little bit more rough than what it was supposed to go. And that kind of told me, like, as I was watching it, knowing what happened, I was like, yep, they got lucky right there. Like, they dodged a bullet with an injury right there. And because the match continued on and they kept going, you're not going to dodge multiple more bullets And that proved to be true because they had another botch that really they're lucky that they were able to walk out of there because it was a rough fall, man. You got to be careful. And Corey Graves even said it immediately, like, do not try this at home. That's why we repeat this over and over again. A nice little reminder there. And shout out to WWE for being able to jump right on top of it, specifically their official who was right on this bad boy, threw up the X, put an end to this match. Obviously, the health is more important, so they took care of that. Want to see both these guys come back. They're really young. They're really promising. Especially Carmelo Hayes. This whole match began with Carmelo Hayes pretty much trying to enter the Royal Rumble, but also signed to SmackDown. He's like, I do look good in blue. And obviously, I want to cut to the chase while we're on the topic, the Royal Rumble. And he gets interrupted by Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. They kind of go back and forth, and that's what leads to this match between Hayes and Theory. But obviously, we hope both these guys get well soon. I'm not sure who got the worst of it, but it just looked rough for everybody involved. So, yeah, obviously, shout out to them, and, hopefully nobody is seriously injured from this. But let's go ahead and go to the main event where obviously we talked about it had potential as being a 3-on-2 handicap match if the Bloodline did not find a partner. And that's exactly what happened. But it was funny the way that it played out because Paul Heyman, throughout the show, they continued to show him begging people, just trying to, brown nose and get somebody to agree to be their partner. And the way that he twisted and manipulated that situation as soon as he was face-to-face with the Bloodline was hilarious. And it's exactly why Paul Heyman is a living legend. Because he just made it seem, he walked up to him and he said, look, screw everybody. There's nobody on the level. I've been having interviews all day. I've been working people out. The tryouts are over. Nobody is worthy of being in the ring with the Bloodline. And I fully believe in you two that you guys can get it done. And I'm not worried one bit. And Jimmy Uso says, well, I'm worried. Like, I don't want you to making it obvious that he doesn't want to do it. But Solo pretty much taps him on the chest and says, I'm not worried. And I believe him, honestly. I'm not going to call Solo a liar, damn sure, but it was a little bit of a funny twist by Paul Heyman to make it seem like, the Bloodline is still it. The Bloodline is still what everyone wants to be in, but it's not really the case. I think the list of enemies for the Bloodline is actually growing by the day at this point. So Jimmy and Solo are forced to go to the ring, expected to have a 3-on-2 handicap match, unless they could, pull something out of their rear end. And that's pretty much what happened. They had one final straw, one last chance to make this match 2-on-2. And what they do is while Randy Orton was making his entrance, because the babyface team was coming out first, the Bloodline attacked him, just like they did earlier in the night to Cameron Grimes to beat the hell out of Randy Orton. So it's essentially a 2-on-2 match, right? We got LA Knight, AJ Styles versus the Bloodline. And this thing's going back and forth a majority of the match. In the very beginning, you saw the heads kind of collide and the whole question, can they coexist? That was really in question with the way LA Knight and AJ Styles were kind of bickering back and forth. Who's going to start the match? AJ Styles accused LA Knight of trying to steal the moment from him after he already dominated. He wasn't tagging whenever he had an opportunity to tag. But nonetheless, this match looks like it's getting out of hand until Randy Orton comes out. The babyface team absolutely beats the living hell out of Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso, really sending a message, really pretty much making it, less and less likely that Roman Reigns is going to have people in his corner, because this was an absolute beatdown when Randy Orton finally came out there. And that's what makes me question whether or not the Bloodline is going to be there at the Royal Rumble. Not even if they're going to interfere. We might see somebody kind of sneak up and make an appearance out of nowhere, because I have my doubts. I really do if they're going to. Because, look, what happened to AJ Styles, right? Solo Sikoa, Jimmy Uso, they put this dude out. And I could see the exact same thing happening to them. A little bit of a taste of your own medicine. Maybe it ain't this week. Maybe it's at the contract signing. The beatdown's already happened. I promise you. They felt that. They're probably going to feel some more between now and then. We only got 2 more weeks. But nonetheless, we're very, very close to things getting good. And it's not like they're not good right now, but you guys know what I mean. This is the freaking Royal Rumble, dude. If you're not excited for this, turn your wrestling fan card in, check your temperature, make sure that you don't have the vid or something like that, because this is a juicy time with a juicy roster, and we have a nice booker who's going to put some good stuff on our plate. We just have to be able to consume it all. But that is the SmackDown review portion of this show. Remember, we are going to get into a Stack 'em Up Saturday, almost at Top 5 Friday. We're probably going to have a Top 5 Friday come back soon, if I can ever get my schedule to work out for me recording on Friday. Right now, it's pretty consistent here on Saturday, which is why Stack 'em Up Saturday has become a mainstay here on the show, and it's going to continue to be that way tonight, because we're going to go through the top 5 current championship designs on the main roster in WWE, but specifically on the main roster. So we're not going to include the NXT Championship, the North American Championship, nothing like that. The Cruiserweight, wherever that is, if it even exists at this point, we're going to focus on strictly Raw, SmackDown, the main roster championships. And at number 5, this might surprise some people because of where it is on the totem pole at the very top. It's at number 5 whenever you're talking about the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. I think that this one is just, it's a different color. Go to create my own belt on WWE.com or whatever, and you could make this belt pretty easy. So that's why I knock it a little bit. It is still a nice belt, but in comparison to some of the other belts, I really don't think it compares at all, especially whenever you factor in creativity and things like that. Number 4, I have the Women's World Title held by Rhea Ripley. It looks almost identical to the World Heavyweight Championship, just a white strap, and that's pretty much why I take it down just a little bit, because the white strap, I'm not the biggest fan of those. Now, they don't look bad by any means. I literally have the White Intercontinental Championship over there, and it's special. So don't think I'm hating on the white strap on belts. I just prefer the black look on that specific belt. So that's why, it's a little bit of a spoiler, the World Heavyweight is going to be a little bit higher on this list. But I do like the theme, giving the women a championship that's similar to the World Heavyweight, and it just makes, it makes all the sense in the world. So I had to put Rhea Ripley's belt right here on number 4. Number 3, the Intercontinental Championship held by Gunther. And I'm trying to not factor past into this. Obviously, whenever you think about past Intercontinental Championships, like the one I just mentioned, even the one from the Ruthless Aggression era, a lot of people like the other Intercontinental Championship designs, and I don't disagree. I like them too. I like them better than the current one. But I still think the current one's good. It's a good design. It's a good belt. It's unique. It doesn't look like any of the other ones. So that's why I kind of was like, all right, I'm not going to think about past Intercontinental Championships. I'm going to put this one in a vacuum and look at the design. And I do think it is a top 3 belt right now in WWE. Number 2 is the one that I kind of teased earlier, the Men's World Heavyweight Championship held by Seth Rollins. I think this is a beautiful belt. One of my favorite belts, or not even one of my favorite belt, was the big gold, the one that Triple H held, Edge, Undertaker, Batista. The list goes on and on. Scott Steiner, Goldberg. I don't know if Scott Steiner held this one. I know that for sure Ric Flair did. He made it famous. Booker T held this one. Hulk Hogan, Sting. The list goes on and on. This is a very beautiful belt, and the fact that they kind of remade it, just modernized it with that WWE logo in the middle, and remind you, that's just part of the modern times. You're going to have the logo of the company on the belt. That's just marketing. I totally understand it. I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. It looks great. I love that they even themed it and made it inspired of that World Heavyweight Championship belt. So I'm not going to complain because I only got 2 pieces of pizza. I'm going to, be happy that I got 2 pieces of pizza, and hey, I couldn't have got any. So that's kind of the way I approach this. I'm thinking of my glass half full here instead of, my glass is half empty. No, I really appreciate them for bringing that back. But number 1, I got to go the United States Championship. I think that with the color involved in this one, the theme, the way that it does look like they improved previous United States Championships, and I love previous ones, but whenever you look at them compared to this one, they do look a little bit cartoonish. Like the John Cena one, the one that the Big Show held, I love that one. That's another one that I have right over here on one of my shelves. But just in my personal experience, I think that, the one they have now clearly is an upgrade and is a very beautiful belt. I'm going to get that one too. It's going to be on my shelf. I got a few of the newer belts that I really need to get. But until then, these are my favorite. These are the ones that I'm rolling with, and I'll just recap it really quickly. Number 5, Roman Reigns Universal Championship, the black strap with the black WWE logo and the gold plate behind it. Number 4, Rhea Ripley's Women's World Championship, the white belt that's exactly like Seth Rollins. Number 3, the Intercontinental Championship that Gunther pretty much, this belt is synonymous with Gunther. The era of this Intercontinental Championship, does anybody remember anyone else holding this? Now, obviously, Shinsuke Nakamura held it, Ricochet held it, and many others. But it does seem like this version of that IC title is synonymous with Gunther, which makes sense. He's had the belt for damn near over 2 years now. And number 1, Logan Paul's championship, that United States, that beautiful belt. But that does do it for us here, guys, on this SmackDown review. I do want to thank you guys for listening. I apologize for the delay, but hopefully you will still consume and enjoy this episode, and let me know any thoughts, any feedback. Get at me at Michael5Ritter on X, Michael Ritter 5 on Instagram. Those are the best 2 ways you can get a hold of me. I will 100% respond. Other than that, you guys have a damn good weekend. Enjoy this playoff football. Go listen to the Football Function podcast. It'll mean the world to me. Let me know if you do go listen to that podcast over there and you're from the WWE podcast, find a way to let me know so I can give you a major shout out on the show, because I definitely like to give shout outs on the show, and I will definitely do that if I am aware that somebody came from the WWE podcast over there. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully you will continue to do that. Like I said, have a damn good weekend. Enjoy all the football you can. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.